Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Siad, and welcome to what is now the first ever Margins Guitar Collective listening party. I'm here today joined by Joshua Marquez, and Joshua and I are going to chit chat. We're gonna kick it. We're gonna have some banter. Joshua's gonna play some of his incredible music. We're gonna talk about it, and it is what I think going to be the kind of perfect end to a really hot day here in Texas. So, Joshua, if you could tell us, tell us about yourself, who you are, what do you do, where are you beaming into us from, that would be great.
Hi, so thank you, Siad, for having me on this live stream and this listening party. I'm really excited to be here. I'm a composer and a guitarist, an improviser. I just like to make sound, whatever that means. I like to make it. I like to curate it. I like to enjoy it. Currently, I'm beaming in from Wilmington, North Carolina, but I'm only here for the next 4 days. I'll be in Philadelphia on Wednesday. So as you can see
Oh
by
my
my
gosh.
lovely background right behind me, we are patching up the walls and painting, and there's boxes over here, and I tried to make it look as best I can, but it's what we've got. If I move really, you can see a big patch that we did.
Oh, I see.
Um, so so yeah, I'll be in Philadelphia though. So I feel a little bit like a fraud saying I'm a Philly artist, but I feel a little bit like a fraud saying I'm a North Carolina artist.
Right,
So
right.
I'm
Is that
just
a
living
thing
in
people say though? Like, I'm a North Carolina artist.
yeah, like I'm a
Okay,
I'm a
okay.
New York based artist, or
Right.
you see it in people's bios at least.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm
and that's where
based
we're
in
living.
Iowa. Okay.
Yeah, we're living on the internet right now, so we
Right.
read about each other. Like, you're based in Texas, you're based in Austin.
Yeah.
It's kind of good to know, even though digitally it doesn't really matter as much.
Right, right. But it's like, oh, but when someone like wants to see me in person, then they'll know where I am.
Yeah, masked and 6 feet apart.
Right. Hand sanitizer, anyone? Hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask you this because I feel like the last several times that we've talked, at least on video, you have had baseball caps on, and you're wearing a Phillies hat right now, and so are you a baseball fan?
I'm a huge baseball fan.
Oh, I did not know this. Okay, it's always like slipped my mind. But I think it's always comforting to find people who like music and sports
Yeah,
because there's just like this weird discourse around like you can't be an artist and like sports, and it's just like why not? Like,
yeah. Wait, are you a baseball fan too?
yeah, I like baseball. I'm a much bigger basketball fan, but I do enjoy baseball a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I live in North Carolina. You think I'd be a big basketball fan, but I grew up kind of in Raleigh, and
Oh,
it
okay.
just it was too much. Like Michael Jordan, all of that. I loved it. I played when I was a kid, but I love baseball. I played baseball through high school. Um, are you an Astros fan?
I'm a Cubs fan.
Are you a Cubs? Oh, that's
Yeah,
yeah. Of course you're a
in
Cubs fan.
my well, in my heart of
That
hearts,
makes sense.
in my heart of hearts, I am Chicago based, right? Like
Yeah,
I want
your
to
heart's in
be.
Chicago.
Right, right, right. My body's in Texas, but my heart's in Chicago.
Yeah, so I think I was wearing a Dodgers hat maybe last time. I
Yeah, I saw the LA. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a lifelong Dodgers fan, but now the last few months I've been converting to a Phillies fan, knowing that I'm going to be in Philadelphia, which has been great. Experiencing it. I watch a lot of baseball. I have it on when I engrave scores. I always
Yeah.
have baseball. If it's in the summer,
Oh, yeah, right,
baseball
right.
season, I watch it.
So you don't watch like old baseball games?
Sometimes I do.
You're okay. You're really a baseball fan then.
I'm really I
Yeah,
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 and it was great because if you watch, I've been mostly on the East Coast and Midwest, so watching Dodgers games when they're at home, I could go to a concert, like a classical music concert or something, get home and catch it in like the second or third inning. Like I don't
yeah.
miss anything.
Right, right.
Um, versus you, you watch the team you grow up at, like you're gonna miss a lot of it if you're active in the music community or doing like primetime stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But
I want to, I mean, in Austin, like, we have sports kind of or whatever. But like the thing I love about Chicago is like every sport's there.
Yeah,
And I think Philly has like
it's got
enough
everything.
sports. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
it's
it's
like
got
all the
the
sports.
Eagles. It's got it's got Flyers.
The 76ers.
It's got who are looking good this year, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, Chicago's got it all though. You
yeah.
got the
Like
dynasties there too. You got the Bears, the Bulls, the Cubs,
the Chicago Sky,
the Blackhawks.
the Fire, right? Chicago Fire.
Yeah.
I know that is a TV show, but I believe that is also the MLS
It's a
team.
TV show. You got the Chicago Med. You got the Chicago
Right.
PD. Is that the other one?
Probably no. Chicago Med is really is actually one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, well, fun. I am so glad to know that you like sports as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is a
that's
weird
good.
thing where people don't like. I went to University of Iowa for my for grad school, and a good friend of mine that I was there with for 3 years. We didn't know each. Both of us were hardcore baseball watchers and fans, and it just never came up. It never came up in the 3 years that we spent together. You know, like
That's so interesting.
yeah, but we would both go back to our apartments and watch baseball after rehearsals and concerts, and we never thought to bring it up to one another until afterward. And I made like like we saw each other comment on like an MLB thing on something. We're like, wait a minute.
Wait, so do you play? So this is something that I've really had trouble keeping up with. Is like fantasy sports. Do you
No, I
play
don't.
fantasy sports at all? Okay.
It's over my head.
Yeah, it's just I really like at the every beginning of every like fantasy sports season, I get like super excited. Like, I create my account and I do my first round drafts of like whatever sport. Like this latest one is F1. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna keep up with it. And then like the second week comes and I just
Yeah,
can't.
I don't know how to do all of that, and I don't have the drive to learn.
That part too.
You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Hobbies.
Chicago's cool
Chicago.
sports.
Jamie says we're doing good. So
What's up, Jamie?
um so yeah, of course if you have anything to say, please put it in the chat. We always appreciate it. I think now would be a good time for you to start sharing some music.
Sure.
So I think we've got the first piece kind of queued up here. And you want to tell us a little bit about like the things you're going to share with us tonight and how I came to be and all of that good stuff.
Sure. So I have been working on a batch of music that will tentatively be released as an album later this year. It is comprised mostly of guitar recordings or takes, shall we say, and then manipulated as little as I can. I try to do as much analog or excuse me, like pre box messing with things so that whatever is heard is just layered things that are barely messed with. Like I don't do many cuts. I EQ out. I did like a rough master for this listening party, but like I do as little as I can in the box in the actual digital audio workstation. I just try to get the best. By best, I mean like the desired signal that I want
Right.
with the
right.
effects and with the mics and with the mic placement and with whatever I can do. So it's mostly guitar. There's some other stuff in there, some objects, some piano, I believe, stringed instruments, but most of it is on the guitar. Like 90% of it is on the guitar. So I'll play this first track, and I was just sending you some tentative titles. I'm calling this one "Living in a Digital Tomb" because I feel like that's what we've been doing for the last 16 months or however long we've been in this quarantine abyss. But yeah, I'll play this.
Cool. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I really like that. Can you talk to us about what life is like, what life has been like in this digital tomb for you? Because I really resonate with that. I really love the piece, and but I really resonate with this like digital tomb idea. I feel like Twitter is also a little bit like a digital tomb. So if you could just, what has it been? What has life been like for you this past year or so?
Yeah, thankfully I haven't really been on Twitter. It really is
It's a
like a
good thing.
digital tomb with like, yeah, it's good for me. You have like tombstones with every tweet.
Oh
That you
gosh,
can just like swipe through them all.
right. This
No,
could be like the cancellation of me.
it could be the
Yeah.
cancellation. It could be you dig your own grave with it. I had one that was connected to like a Facebook a long time ago, and I never used it. But yeah, so the digital tomb is just this like monotony and stasis, and we're kind of caught and lost in it to the point where it's just so uncomfortable. And so I was trying to, and I do this with a lot of my work, trying to evoke that like uneasy tension, but also reinforce that stasis. And after a while, you just kind of get lost in that stasis. And I feel like a lot of us do this even before the pandemic. We just were like, "What day is it?" Like
Yeah.
I know the date, but like, is it Tuesday or is it Wednesday? Um, and I think that I got really lost in the pandemic. And we also didn't have like a work life balance. We didn't have that boundary. We didn't have that place to escape to. We didn't have even like more luxury things like entertainment to escape to.
Hmm.
We couldn't really go outside of our home. And I'm not saying that our homes are tombs, but like when that's all you're doing and you're getting deliveries, our behavior changed, our whole lifestyle changed, our whole look, our whole perspective changed. And it's this weird digital thing too. And I always like to say my music is not Asian or it's not American, it's Asian American, where you can't point to it on a map. You can't put boundaries or a border around it. It's just wherever I'm resonating, wherever I'm existing, and wherever other
Hmm.
people are resonating and existing. It's not a physical location. And a lot of my work straddles this line between the digital and the analog. And so I feel like, well, this is a perfect way for me, at least for me, it's a perfect way to encapsulate this using digital and analog recording technologies and instrumentation and effects and approaches to capturing that sound. We live in this capture culture, right? This idea of like capturing something on a cell phone or whatever, usually a cell phone, whether it be like good or bad or ugly. We capture it on a cell phone, and so we're constantly documenting things. And after a while, it all becomes a wash. It like Instagram feeds are
Yeah.
digital tombs. It's the same thing. An Instagram feed is a digital tomb, and yet I participate in it most days. Uh, but like when you step back and you realize like I can't ignore this anymore. But how do you kind of reinforce that? Because I feel like the monotony of that piece kind of allows us to enter that space more comfortably and more
Hmm.
aware, and also kind of for me like reflecting on I got to do something to change. Yeah,
Yeah.
my daily or my hourly.
Right. Right. I need to eat something different so that life
Yeah.
just feels different. I wanted to ask you about if and or how you might further define your music genre wise. I was in a meeting today, and someone was like, "How do you define classical music?" And the person answered like, "It's hard, but I think of it as music that is meant to be performed, then recorded, not recorded and then performed." Um, which was
Wow.
an interesting like thing to hear. Um, so yeah, like do you define your genre? Do you define your music in any kind of genre way?
I don't. I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think I have to classify it to like release it.
Sure.
That's really it.
Right, on
So
Bandcamp.
it's like experimental or something
Okay.
like that. I once heard somebody say that we should stop the use of the term classical music because it defines a period of time within
Okay.
Western music canon, but instead we should say music of the concert tradition. And I also question that because I'm like, well, you go here, I don't know, insert pop singer or like rock band, and you're going to go to their concert. There's a
Right.
tradition
Yeah.
of touring. So classical music, quote unquote, like how we're roughly defining it, is not music of the concert tradition by itself. Like it's, I think we had this conversation the other day. Like classical music is preservationist music. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
it like tries to preserve something. So I feel like because I trained in a conservatory setting within the classical music realm, I often identify and am often lumped into classical music, even though it does not resemble a lot of classical music. It's this weird training thing that we wanted to see ourselves through, and it's like, well, I was raised in a conservatory, or I was educated in a conservatory, which makes me belonging to this lineage. I remember I had friends in grad school who would do like a lineage map of I studied with this
Oh my
person.
gosh, I hate
Oh,
those.
it was super. Have you seen those? They're super
Yes,
toxic.
I've seen them. Yeah.
And it's like I studied all the way back to Beethoven, and I'm like, who
Oh my
cares?
gosh.
Like, who really cares? You know, like you didn't study with Beethoven. You studied with some white guy that studied with some other white guy. That's like, I could probably trace mine back to him too, and it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
So funny.
Anyway, so genre. How do I define it? I don't. It's just contemporary music. It's music that's being made right now. It's however it needs to be defined to get out there. At the end of the day, we're very gestalt in the way we look at things, and we want to define something so that we can curate our playlist on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and we can like define. If we define it, then we can open up avenues, and it should be the inverse of that. Like we should listen to something and then maybe self-define something as listeners, but instead the listeners want. We have to play this game. We
Right.
have to do that in that way. So like experimental, I think this is like kind of ambient in its presentation. Um, Contemporary or avant-garde, I think, are the unfortunate terms that we have to use.
Right. Right. And even avant-garde is, I don't know.
It's old school.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels still not like, doesn't feel that good either. But again, we have to kind of, for marketing purposes. Yeah. You
It's
know.
for marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to the next track here, which you have on our working document as asymmetric information. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So asymmetric information, uh, for me, feels like it's asymmetric. It reflects asymmetric relationships or asymmetric power relationships and power dynamics. So we're getting this asymmetric information. And again, I'm thinking about digitally. I'm thinking about January 6th storming the Capitol, how these people thought something, you know, and there's other examples.
Yeah.
There's plenty of examples of people with power and money putting out things that are not necessarily informative, but they're under the guise of information that create asymmetric power relationships and power dynamics. And so, just broadly, like asymmetric information is just something I've been thinking about with how we consume information. Again, going back to like living in a digital tomb, when you really are forced to consume everything that way, you have to be aware of the sources of that information. And I think we've seen this in positive and negative. I like George Floyd. If we weren't in
Yeah.
lockdown, I don't know if that would have had as profound of an impact. You know, but because that was the height of lockdown where everyone was locked down, it got some attention. And I think it shouldn't have happened in the first place, but that was an unfortunately good time. I don't even say that for a soundbite. Like it was good timing. It wasn't good timing,
No.
but it was because of lockdown that got and spread so quickly. But on the flip side, like we have a lot of negative things spread so quickly because we were in lockdown, and we're at this point where people are spreading misinformation. I had, I don't know if it's that funny to say. I had a title, like a tongue-in-cheek title. I have like a bunch of tongue-in-cheek titles that I never try not to use, but one was like, some people are so tied to misinformation they've made her Mrs. Information. And I was just like, that's so, it's so bad. It's so bad that I can't say it, but
No,
I
you can't,
said
but
it.
it's good.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed I said that. Anyway, I'll play asymmetric information and we'll
Great.
come out on the other side.
Amazing. Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Um, totally love
Can,
it. What all were
mhm.
you using there?
So there's a lot of flanger in there
Okay.
that, if I'm being honest, I think I routed after I recorded. So I was using an ebow
Yeah.
and a
Okay. Okay.
cello bow. Like I tried to use both. I have a really cheap cello bow, so
Okay.
it doesn't sound as clean, but some of the grittier stuff it feels better. And it feels more like I'm not cheating with an ebow. I don't feel like I'm cheating with an ebow, but if I
I
have
know.
like a
Yeah.
real bow, it's like $25 or something. Um, and I was using a spring as well to get some of the lower stuff that I buried in the mix because it just overwhelms it sometimes. But I was using a flanger for a lot of that washy flangery effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's a liquid flange, like who's the company that makes it? Is it Line 6? Line 6 liquid flange? I
Probably
packed it away.
flanger.
Yeah, it's a cool flanger. I bought it for like $50 on like Craigslist or something. And the guy was like, "It's not working," and it totally works. Um, It's just got some quirks about it. But I was using that. I used uh, what is this called? Oh, the Fender Blender Fuzz. So I use that for a lot of digital processing
Yes. Okay.
into it. So I had different layers at different levels of different dialing in the fuzz at different types.
Because
And I
there was almost
probably
this, and I mean this in the best possible way, like almost
yeah
this white noise kind of.
yeah
And I was like, oh, is that fuzz? Is that like some kind of noise that he's like manufacturing? Is that like post or something? So it was really
yeah
interesting. I really liked it.
yeah. So the Fender Blender has an octafuzz in front of it, or an Octavia in front of the fuzz, and then I also have a separate Octavia. So I ran both of those octaves into it, which got that dense kind of harshness into a pretty dimed fuzz, and then to smooth it all out and just to kind of compress it, I ran it into. I mean, that's like general, but so it's not super spiky. I ran it, I think, through. I'm looking at my pedal board now, either through like my old Tube Screamer or like maybe a Blues Driver or something like that, just to take the edge off, but also add a little bit more complex overtones into that to like thicken it, but also round it. So a lot of those tones were that, just dialing that in and different varieties of it coming in and out. And then what I like to do is take that signal from my interface, run it back through my pedals and back into my interface. So once I record a signal, I can keep the original, add another layer or add another track, dial something in like a flanger. So I can do a global flange to the track
Over,
after
yeah,
everything.
the whole thing.
Or I can do a cleaner guitar thing with the reverb and do like a My Bloody Valentine style thing of having the reverb at the front, but you have the full recorded signal and then you run that signal through dirt. So it's as though you have like a washy reverb guitar. It's I'm flipping the pedal order, like traditional pedal order. But I'm too lazy to actually do it in real life, so
Right, right.
I re-record through it sometimes. And what's interesting is you can change your mic setup then too. So I can close mic the cab. I can change amps. I can put the amp. I'll do this. I'll put the amp in a closet and get like natural reverb there. Though sometimes it's not the greatest.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? Like you can manipulate things in post, but you can do it in an analog way instead of like adding 500 plugins. You can try to get it in a I mean, it's still a digital world, but in a non-digital world.
Right.
And then
right.
I'll run that through tape like reel-to-reel tape machines or cassette tape decks, and that also EQs it. It's operating like an EQ at that point.
I love this thing that you do with tapes. And after this next piece, let's talk about tape after you play this next one.
Yeah.
Because like, yes, like there just needs to be more of that everywhere. I've been like in search of tape of all kinds to use to like attempt to mirror or to aspire to your level there, but also just to listen to and consume
Yeah, tapes are
in an
cool.
analog way.
I'm gonna have to
So
send you some tapes. I have some tapes that you can have.
yes,
I might actually mail you like a tape deck too. Like
that, that would be
you
amazing.
you could just go to a thrift store. You could find it for like $10, if that. If you, I mean, you're in Austin, so you have plenty
Yeah.
of good thrift stores. Like you can find some good ones. I used to have an R2D2 one that was so nice. You wouldn't think so because it's like a kid's toy, but
That's cool. Yeah.
it was amazing. I actually went to a noise show before the pandemic, like the month before it really hit. Like it was January, February of 20, and this guy had the same that I had as a kid. It was when I was like a 10-year-old or something. I had this R2D2 tape player or tape deck, and he had the same one. He was using the same exact model. I was like, where did you find that? He found it at a thrift shop. I was like, that could have been mine. You never know. Like mine could have made its way all the way around.
What if the possibilities there?
I know. I should have written my name in it or something as a kid. I didn't think about that. But like, pop open the battery compartment. Let me see. Anyway, so this third track, we'll get back to tape because it's always fun. This, I guess I got to share my screen. This third track, I tentatively titled as Nature Shudders, and I realized in our notes I misspelled shutters. As Nature Shudders, because I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of like how we're kind of all recoiling from this. the pandemic. I think this album is really, or this part of the album is really about the pandemic and our reaction to it and our reaction during it, or our living with it. Um, so I'm just thinking, and also like climate change and like
Oh, yeah.
how we need to do things better, and
Don't
how
get me
nature's
started.
just like shuddering. I was reading this book about the oil industry and how what was it called? It was like man-made earthquakes though in Oklahoma,
Mm,
and how there's hundreds in Oklahoma now, and they're all man-made from fracking.
wow.
You know,
I
it
haven't heard.
just
I have not read about that.
it's the Rachel Maddow book, Blowout. I think
Okay,
it
I'm
might be
writing
her
that down.
newest one. It's really good. It's um, yeah, if you read it in her voice too, it makes it a little bit a little bit better. Which you can't not read it in her voice. Like anyway, I'll play this track.
Good vibes.
Thank you, thank you,
I really enjoyed that one.
thanks.
Like, I don't know that you're gonna stick with a naturey title for it, but uh, if you ask me, I think you should.
Okay,
like,
yeah, I
like
love it.
yeah, I could see see that and envision that and hear that in like this really forward way. So it was kind of cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it started playing again after I stopped sharing the screen. I'm like, uh,
um, for those of us in the audience who are like of similar age and maybe younger, or who just don't recall this period of life, how did you get back to tape and reel to reel, and like where did it come from, and how are you envisioning that work continuing in this is like digital world, um this digital space? I mean, I think in our lifetimes we've gone to like seeing the music seeing the music on a tape, on a CD, on a thumb drive, whatever, to now it just like the Bluetooth beams are coming from somewhere. So
yeah.
like how did you get back to tape?
Well, I'm vaccinated, so Bluetooth beams actually caused me to. I'm just. I'm kidding. I am vaccinated, but I was gonna make a bad joke, and I'm not. I'm gonna refrain from that.
Appreciate you.
Um, so my family owned an antique store, and we would go to flea
Oh,
markets.
okay.
So, and it was not a great antique store. I'm not trying to throw shade at it, but it wasn't like a high end boutique store
Sure,
like you see
sure.
now. It was
Hmm.
like 90s antiques. You use this furniture, it doesn't look good on like an influencer story. Um, it was like refinished furniture and kind of, I don't want to say junk, but we would go to flea markets and like trade shows and things like that. And I would help load. When I was old enough, I would help load furniture. And when I was younger, I just was there because I couldn't be alone because I was a kid. Um, but I would help and I would run errands. I've told this story on a few podcasts, but I would run errands for other traders and dealers,
Hmm.
and I would get them like a sandwich, and they would give me like a $5 bill or something. Or they'd be like, "Keep the change." And so after running a few errands, I'd have enough cash to go to a dealer, like an electronics dealer or something, and I would buy tape recorders because that was a fun way to like pass the time. And
Hmm.
I was really into sound. I was really into making soundscapes, so I'd record things like around. The flea markets were like in old gyms and stadiums and like arenas and fairgrounds and things like that. So I would just record soundscapes and I would get two and then I would layer them together. And when I would get home, I would layer and layer and layer. So for me, I've always felt really at home and familiar with tapes.
Okay.
But I think more broadly, a lot of people are going back to
Yeah.
vintage electronics or vintage media. We're seeing the resurgence of vinyl in the
Yeah.
last 10
Record
years.
store days tomorrow.
Right? Is it
Well,
tomorrow?
the first drop is there's a drop
Yeah, it's all
tomorrow
broken
and
up.
then July 17th or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, but like it's a huge market now because people want it, and I'm seeing plugins for recording that
Hmm.
emulate specific reel-to-reel decks. Excuse me, or certain like analog technologies. And if we're trying to emulate it again, well, I guess we had this in a private conversation. Like, if you're going to try to emulate a tube amp,
Just play tuba.
just buy a tube amp because it's the same cost as a high-end emulator. I understand the ease and all of that, and there's a lot of instances where those definitely outweigh the benefits outweigh the cost of buying a tube amp and the maintenance of a tube amp. But like if you're savvy enough to, and I'm not savvy at all, but like I can solder something, I can diagnose a problem, I can take some alcohol wipes and like wipe down some jacks and like clean things, and so I'll buy things off eBay that say like do not work or for parts only, but they're so cheap. I'm like, oh, $20 for a vintage Akai like 100 XD. Yeah, I'll buy it. And if it doesn't work, I'll see if somebody can service it really cheap, or maybe I can use a belt or something from it, or like whatever. It's worth $20. Clean it, open it up, dust it off, move some things around. It works. Maybe there's like a function on it that doesn't work. Like the rewind doesn't work on one of my reel-to-reel machines, and all I have to do is manually rewind it. But that's not a big deal.
No, no.
Or I take it off, put it on a different machine, hit rewind, and it does it for me. And then It took me a few. It took me like a dozen takes to realize that. It's one of my better like sounding hi-fi things.
Funny.
So this track I actually think I ran it through. It's a Sony TC60, I think. Yeah, it's a great sounding all tube tape deck, but the rewind doesn't work. So I was running this track. You could hear some of the hiss and sizzle in it, especially later on when I'm getting the frequencies that are sizzling and sizzling and hissing. Tongue tied. But yeah, just finding ways around this analog technology that doesn't work, and it's always serviceable, almost always serviceable.
Yeah.
It's not convenient though, but it's cool and it emulates something, and I like the precarious quality of it. Like the nature of it, it's very precarious in that you're going to get a quirk in the machine that I have versus the machine somebody else has, unless they're both pristinely kept, you know. And even then, you're still going to get minute differences, but you're going to get some consistency. Right. But I like this like ragtag way of doing things. That's very like, I kind of fixed it. Like I took the belt off of one machine and I just tied I found a way to like maneuver it. I had a broken belt in the machine that was really working. I opened up the back to fix something else. The belt snapped because it wasn't oiled. And I was like, well, this machine doesn't work, and it's got an oversized belt for like measuring it. And I found a way to maneuver it, and now the thing works well enough. I won't say perfectly. It works well enough.
Well enough. That's my goal in life.
Yeah, that's my goal in life
well
too.
Enough. Yeah.
It's a great metaphor for life. But
totally. So this next piece, what are your current working title is?
Prosthetic environments. So I'm thinking a lot about it's again like this. I heard somebody say, it was probably in a documentary or something, I'm just swimming in a plastic soup about in the ocean, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful and horrifying, and I never want to go to the ocean again. But just thinking about, I was walking around and just thinking about these mounds of plastic that just don't disintegrate, right? They're forever in our world. And there's these giant mounds, and I didn't want to say like plastic mountains or something, but like prosthetic environments of this like addendum, this thing that is created. And I'm living in this world, and I'm making music in this kind of way. It's not analog. It's not completely digital. It's not in the box. It's not out of the box. It's not a DAW-less jam. Like, you know, a lot of these, like there's like synthfluencers on Instagram, like all the social media stuff, and they'll be like DAW-less jams, and they're very religious about not using a computer and having it all generated on analog and digital gear. And where I love that restriction and that restraint, for me, I'm like, I want to be able to make the work. And sometimes those limitations are amazing, and they force you into creativity. But at the end of the day, if you need something to carry you across the finish line, which I often do, I'll use like a digital thing. So how, again, this environment, it's an analog environment conceptually in my head, but it's also digital. And so again, I'm creating this like plasticity with something. And the last track, I do remember some of the stutters I couldn't get quite right with the tremolos that I have. I have two analog tremolo ways of doing things. So I used this plugin called Portal, which I did like a 7-day free trial. Shout out Splice. I did everything I needed to with Portal on that 1 week. But it was great. It was great because it allowed me to do something with a little bit more ease, even though I could have figured it out analog wise. It was just like, I'm not cheating, right? But we are kind of polluting everything by, so again, like kind of harsh, but also very ambient track. So for that track, and to be like transparent, I recorded these maybe at the beginning of the year, maybe late last year.
Okay.
And I really haven't listened to them since then. I like to let things sit for a while
Okay.
so that I can come to them with fresh ears. I mean, I mixed them. I did a rough mix for the listening party, but to listen to them through once without interruption. This is. I mean, I kind of wanted to be fresh too. This is the first time I've listened to them, honestly, in like 6 months, maybe 5 months. But for this track, I did use recordings of Humpback Whale song for.
Okay.
My
Okay.
master's thesis.
Wasn't just thinking that.
Yeah, my master's thesis was on the analysis of Humpback Whale song, and I've been working on an article with a research partner about the analysis of this. I won't get into that, but it's pretty interesting how humpback whales conceive of structure and like composition. We can call it, if we want to call it that, how humpback whale song is composed, though. That's a whole different discussion, but it's beautiful, and a lot of people really enjoy humpback whale song. But going back to the plastic soup quote, so I was thinking a lot about plastic soup and prosthetic environments and like plasticity, elasticity, how we're manufacturing a lot of our natural environments, or how we're taking them over by waste, by like excessive behavior. So this thought of excess has gotten stuck in my head in like materialistic endeavors. And I'm going to paraphrase an Ai Weiwei quote from an interview I read with him, where he said, I think it was Ai Weiwei. I'm not gonna attribute it to him, even though I just did. It could be somebody else. So don't hate me if it's somebody else. But he was saying in Eastern thought, repetition, whether it be in music or visual art or whatever, repetition allows you to empty your head and meditate.
Hmm.
And I really resonated with that. And he said, but in contrast, in Western thought, repetition demonstrates wealth and excess and kind of that kind of mindset, which I think about a lot with like minimalism. Yeah, it. You can argue that it's like got Eastern things, but I do think it's like kind of peacockery. At least a lot of it is, you know. Don't at me, you know, if you're a big minimalist person. But like I'm thinking a lot about minimalism in repetition and how things are consumed. So I'm having this loop of the humpback whale degrade over time. I think what I did was I put my Jazz Master on the ground, and then I have this thing by Electro Faustus called the Drum Thing, which is just a contact mic in a tin box, in a metal enclosure, and I think my cell phone with the recording, courtesy of Roger Payne and Ocean Alliance. Shout out Roger Payne. On top of that, so the internal phone speaker was playing through the Electro Faustus drum thing, which is just a contact mic, going. Well, I guess I didn't need my pickups then. Sometimes I do it where I play and it goes through my pickups. Anyway, right. I think it was just going through the Electro Faustus then into my pedal board, and I think I was doing the loop. I think once I captured it with my Line 6 DL4, I was able to pitch it down or slow it down a little bit and work from there. So I had to find the right bit of sample to like harmonize with.
Yeah, I was wondering how you did that, because it was pretty tight. I thought, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and that's the thing about the humpback whale song analysis. Like they're very their pitch usage is really consistent and structured in that across decades. I was doing analysis from the 70s through the 2000s. They're very, very consistent with pitch usage. So you can kind of predict it, and then you can control it. I mean, they're off with microtones and stuff, but that was part of the piece. So anyway, that's what I was using for one loop. And then the other loop was more of the like volume swells. And then those become different textures over time. Or those become consumed by different textures. And I don't think, I think the whale loop was very consistent in that it was just timed. I think the other swells I was doing in faux repetition. Like I was trying to keep the same time, but then speed up and slow down at certain points. Like undulate, so that it's not just like rhythmically the same. Thing. Through like a looper or something. But I was trying to emulate a looper but just patiently doing it myself for like 5.5 minutes. And then taking that, and what I did was I just got 1 or 2 or 3 good takes all lined up, and then I would run those through. I would send one signal through the pedal board with a different variation, and then I could blend those in. So I could do a really harsh version and then automate the volume, or I could do it manually, automate the volume, so that at the end it consumes the more clean tone, or whatever we want to call it. So again, this replacement of the natural world with plastic through this repetition. We consistently consume in excess, but we also empty things out, and we litter and all of that. I mean, yeah, I'm beating a dead horse, but you get it.
No, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. So there's so many things I want to talk about, but I think maybe we should get to the final piece, and then yeah, so many things I want to ask you.
And we can, we'll get to the final piece. Why not?
I'm laughing because of the title. Sorry. The title that you put there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up, but if you want to tell us about the title.
Oh yeah, so the title is At This Point We've Lost the Plot. Just a working title, but again, thinking about climate change and thinking about the pandemic. We were having this discussion like in a just a video chat at one point about the pandemic, and like it's over for a lot of people, but it's really not over. It's not over, you know. And I'll go to the grocery store and like 70% of the people are unmasked, because in North Carolina we can do that, and I don't really like that. But you know, it's fine. I can't. What can I do? I have to go to the grocery store, and I still wear a mask. I'm fully vaxxed. I'm good to go. But it's for the safety and comfort of other people.
Yeah.
And you have to trust other people, and I generally do, but I also just don't trust other people, because I'm like, are you vaxxed? Are you vaccinated? I should stop saying vaxxed. Are you vaccinated? Or are you just you know, kind of using this to not be masked, which again, for most people just isn't a big ask. Anyway, so at this point, we've lost the plot. I just feel like we forgot what we're doing this for, and we forgot.
Yeah.
Like we greenwash a lot of things and don't think about climate change and how to change it. We just want to like get props for it. We like virtue signal with it. Anyway, we've lost the point.
We've lost the plot.
We've lost the plot.
I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank you.
sharing all this music with us. Was there like some voice manipulation in there at all, or
No, so you brought up
okay?
tape, and I forgot until we were listening to this how I did this. So I dubbed, I think it was four, maybe five different tracks to five different. Actually, I probably was like two to three different reel to reel decks because I didn't have to do it live diffusion. But one of them, I'm clearly pinching the tape and stopping it. So I recorded a sample, and then I'm just pinching it and stopping it for that stutter. And that's probably the most prominent thing in there. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's just other that are unmanipulated, but maybe the EQ is different. Different like global effects once I've mixed the tracks. But a lot of it was guitar. There was a little bit of piano in there, I
Okay.
think, or it could have just been. It's probably piano. Most of it's guitar though. Like the sustain stuff is definitely guitar. I don't think there was any voice stuff. I think it was just probably like neck pickup, ebow or cello bow with the right like light overdrive, tone rolled back a little bit to get that like vocal thing. And then
Yeah.
you can kind of
Yeah.
EQ it in the box, or usually when it goes through the reel to reel deck, it EQs it in its own unique way, and then it spits back into my interface to digitally capture it. So you can get some like ghostly vocal stuff with guitar. I mean, without the like analog processing, but also you can enhance it with that. Um,
It's funny because at the beginning, um, there's kind of like the stuttering,
mhm.
and we're so used to in this like digital space, like if we hear a skip or a stutter or anything, we're like, is the internet connection bad?
Buffering.
But for, right, like is something wrong? And I was like, oh, like that's no, like that's supposed to be happening. Like that's part of
Yeah.
the music. It's part of the nuance. Is part of the sound. And like as it kept going, I was like, oh, like that's cool. Like, and every time that you think your mind is gonna kind of unfortunately wander away a little bit, it like comes back. You're like, oh, okay, wait, oh, that I caught that. Oh, that was nice. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, and it's the whole like concept of like at this point we've lost the plot of, let's just say, like whatever we're doing, we're wandering, we're coming back to it, we're wandering, we're coming back to it, or we're stuttering. Like one is clearly stuttering, and I don't mean that in any negative connotation,
Right.
but it's like skipping and it's chopped. And the other tracks are relatively smooth. I mean, there's their own nuances and like oddities and weirdness to them, but the other ones are unaffected by the pinching and stopping of this. So again, like not every track, not every like character in the piece is on the same page. So it's creating this tension or this, after a while that tension becomes comfortable because you just hear it enough and you expect it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, analog gear. There's the glitch. We've talked about this book privately, but like the book Glitch Feminism by Legacy Russell has had a big impact on me in the last year, thinking about living within this glitch space. So embodying the glitch. And I think with Margin's Guitar Collective, it's a great metaphor where Legacy is talking about um, the glitch is where things happen. I'm going to paraphrase way too much in the time we have left, but thinking about um, marginalized things being glitches because they go against
Mm.
the system. And the system, whether it be computational, like in the digital world, like a glitch in film or a glitch in like a lot of people think of like video games when
Right.
I've brought it up to them, and that's fine. But like glitching can happen in the natural world, glitching can happen within systems. So when we enter spaces, if we're a marginalized body person, um, we glitch the space because we create tension, and after a while we can change that glitch to become something normal. I always equate it to like penicillin. So penicillin was an accident, but it's so commonly used now. So glitches can become normalized, and I don't like the term normalized, but it's the term we're going to use. It
Right.
can become normalized if we glitch it enough. So we need to live in more glitches, and that's where I think I like my music to exist, because embodying this glitched space sonically reflects how I embody this glitched space physically and mentally and emotionally and geographically, you know. That's why I'm leaving North Carolina. I'm too big of a glitch here. Um, it's not fun.
I understand everything that you just said all too well. So,
Yeah.
so what's you mentioned this earlier, kind of or alluded to it, but what's next for this set of pieces? Or and it's going to be an album, just these things, or is there more you're planning to release alongside them?
Yeah, there's some more tracks that I'm planning to release alongside them for an album. I'm hoping all five of these make the cut. They may not make the cut.
Okay.
At least not for this. I think they will, and then I'll probably add one or two more to round it all out to be like 40 to 50 minutes or so. And we'll see where it goes from there. I'll probably do a couple of physical releases, or I'll do like a physical tape release or something, and then I'll put it on Bandcamp digitally and on Spotify at some point, usually delayed with Spotify, because that's where everyone consumes their work. Whether it's still nice to get somebody to purchase a physical or a digital download because
Right.
the money goes to the artist, but at the same time, I do realize that we live in a world and the democratization of Spotify and other platforms is a good thing for music. And you just as shows open up, hopefully I can play more and find a way to sustain myself in that way as well. So, but yeah, it'll be released sometime maybe this year. Hopefully this year.
Cool. We'll have to do like a V2 listening party. Where it's like, see what made the cut from last time.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joshua, for being here and for sharing this music with us. I'm so happy and I really enjoyed listening to you. And I mean, we're friends, so like cutting it up on stream is like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I'm
what we
always
do.
good for a cut up.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a blast. This is I guess this is the first like official thing I've done with Margins Guitar Collective. I mean, we've done other stuff in the past.
Yeah, and
But
you're on my podcast, yeah.
yeah, but this is the first like thing that's being released because this is live.
Yeah, yeah. So there will be more in the future between you, me, and everybody else in the chat. So, uh, like I said, I appreciate you, and yeah, you can find out more information about us at marginsguitarcollective.com, on the relevant social medias at Margins Guitar Co. And we will be back sometime in the fall. If maybe not, we might do something another thing in the summer, but definitely back in the fall with more stuff. So thank you so much for listening, for joining us, and we will see you at our next thing, whatever that might be. Bye bye.